Rain tapped gently against the window pane of the old roadside diner, its neon sign buzzing dimly above the entrance like a tired heartbeat. Inside, the warmth of clinking cutlery and soft conversation mixed with the scent of brewed coffee and fried food. It was nearly midnight, and most of the booths sat empty, save for one in the far corner where a rugged-looking man and his little girl rested quietly. Daniel, in his mid-30s, wore the look of someone who'd carried too much on his shoulders for too long. His flannel shirt was damp from the rain, his jeans dusty from the warehouse floor. Across the table, his daughter Lily, barely 6, fought to keep her eyes open. Her curly brown hair stuck to her cheek as she leaned against her father's arm, thumb loosely resting in her mouth. They had just finished his late shift again. Money was tight. Sleep was tighter. A waitress approached their table with a gentle smile. Her name tag read Emily, and though her voice was soft and kind, there was something in her expression that didn't sit right. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. They were tired, guarded. She took their order, joking lightly with Lily, who gave a small giggle before resting her head on the table. Daniel watched Emily closely. Not in the way some men might. There was no trace of that. He just noticed things. He had to. Being a single dad living paycheck to paycheck, raising a child alone, it taught him to read the room, to sense when something wasn't right. As Emily turned toward the counter, a sharp whistle pierced the quiet air. One of the men seated at the bar, a slick-looking guy in a business coat, with too much cologne and too little respect, grinned in her direction. "Hey sweetheart, bring that pretty smile over here." Emily stopped mid-step. Daniel saw her shoulders stiffen. She turned back with that same forced grin, giving a polite laugh, pretending like it was nothing, but it wasn't nothing. Daniel caught the moment her hand trembled slightly as she picked up a tray. He watched her eyes, how they flicked toward the clock, toward the door, as if searching for an exit. Another man joined the first, nudging him and whispering something that made them both chuckle. They didn't even look at the menu. Their eyes were only on her. Daniel clenched his jaw. He didn't know Emily. He didn't know her story, but he didn't need to. He saw it in her, the practiced way she deflected comments, the tight way she carried herself, the smile that looked more like a shield than joy. He recognized it the way a man who'd lived through pain recognizes pain in someone else. He thought of his daughter, just inches away, sleeping under the protection of his arm. What would she learn from this moment? That people like those men could act this way and others would stay silent. That kindness was only for those we knew. Emily returned with their food and an apologetic nod. Her fingers brushed the edge of the table, and Daniel caught a glance of the faint bruise near her wrist. Maybe it was nothing, but maybe it wasn't. She handed Lily a free slice of pie and whispered, "For being so brave past bedtime." With a wink, Lily beamed. As Emily walked away, Daniel didn't touch his coffee. He wasn't hungry anymore. He stared at his reflection in the window, the flickering neon above casting halos of red and blue over the rain. He wasn't a hero. He'd made plenty of mistakes. But something deep in his gut twisted painfully. Something told him tonight, silence would be its own kind of cruelty. He watched Emily laugh again, this time for the men at the counter. That same hollow laugh, with the same fearful eyes. That was the fifth sign. And Daniel knew, in that exact moment, he couldn't stay silent. Daniel wrapped his hands around the warm coffee mug, though he barely took a sip. The quiet hum of the diner continued around him, but something inside him had gone still. Lily had drifted off, her head now resting against his side, her tiny breath soft and steady. He looked down at her. Briefly, her innocence was a fragile thing, and tonight he felt the heavy urge to protect it more than ever. Emily returned with the coffee pot, her smile still painted on like a mask she'd worn too long. As she reached out to refill his cup, Daniel saw her hand shake just a little, but enough for him to notice. A fine tremor, the kind that doesn't come from cold but from fear. From across the diner, the man in the business suit snapped his fingers loudly, as if summoning a servant. "Miss, you missed our table again," he called, his voice soaked in arrogance. Emily flinched, nearly spilling the coffee. She turned quickly, mumbling a soft apology as she rushed over. Daniel watched her shoulders draw up tightly, like she was trying to make herself smaller. The man at the counter gave her a look that lingered too long, his lips curling into something smug. Another man slid onto the stool next to him, laughing as he whispered something in his ear. They both looked at Emily like she was a joke they were in on when she asked what they wanted. Their voices lowered but not kindly. One leaned in too close. The other chuckled as she stiffened. Daniel could feel the tension creep into his chest. He'd worked with men like that, entitled, cold, the kind who thrived on control. It didn't take much to read them. It was written in the way they leaned into her space, the way their eyes never met hers respectfully, the way they ignored her discomfort like it gave them power. She returned with their order coffee and nothing else. No thanks, no tip, just more leering glances. As Emily passed by his booth again, Daniel watched her closely. Her eyes darted toward the back kitchen like she wanted to disappear into it. Her expression was tight, mouth slightly open as if caught between breath and speech, but she said nothing. Her silence spoke volumes. He counted them now, quietly, deliberately, one when she flinched at the whistle, two the forced laugh she gave them, three her trembling hands, four those darting corner of the room eyes. 5 the silence, that strange, suffocating silence when they spoke to her. Daniel had learned a lot in the last few years about pain, about resilience, and about when to trust his instincts. His wife had once lived through something similar before she left. Them both he hadn't known then, he hadn't seen the signs. And by the time he understood, it was too late to protect her. But now, he saw them all in Emily. This wasn't just rude customers. This was fear. This was a woman shrinking herself just to survive another shift. And no one was doing anything. Daniel looked at his daughter against her sleep, her tiny hand curled in her lap. What kind of man would he be if he just sat there and watched? His jaw tightened. The unease in his chest turned into something else. Resolve. The air in the diner grew heavier, thick with something unsaid but deeply felt. Daniel watched, unmoving, as the two men at the counter grew bolder with each passing minute. Their drinks remained untouched, but their eyes never left Emily. She tried to keep moving, tried to serve with that same strained smile, but the tension in her shoulders was impossible to miss now. Every time she passed their table, her breath seemed to catch. Then it happened. Emily approached the register to ring up an order, and the taller Manti loosened, eyes slick with entitlement, slid off his stool and stepped in close behind her. The second followed, cornering her between the counter and the sidewall. Daniel saw her stiffen immediately. Her hand hovered above the screen, frozen. The tall man leaned in, murmuring something too low to hear. And then, without warning, his hand closed around her wrist. That's when Daniel saw it. The moment that broke him. Emily's eyes, just for a heartbeat, flicked across the room and landed on his. They were wide, desperate. She didn't say a word, but she didn't have to. It was the look of someone hoping, begging for someone to care enough to step in, and that was enough. Daniel rose from the booth with a quiet steadiness. He didn't slam his chair back or shout. He simply stood, gently lifted Lily's jacket from the seat beside him, and walked toward the counter. As he approached, the men didn't even glance his way. They thought they owned the room. They were wrong. Without raising his voice, Daniel stepped between Emily and the taller man, his broad frame shielding her like a wall. She stepped back instinctively, pressing a hand to her wrist. He looked a man directly in the eye, steady, unwavering. She said no. Daniel said simply. The taller man blinked, momentarily stunned. Excuse me? He asked, smirking. Daniel didn't flinch. You heard me. She's working. She's not here for your entertainment. The second man scoffed. Who the hell are you? Daniel kept his gaze on the first one. I'm a father, a man who knows what fear looks like, and you're the reason women stay silent. The entire diner hushed. The few remaining customers turned to watch. Even the cook peered out from behind the kitchen door. The man released a sharp laugh, then looked around, suddenly aware of the attention. We were just talking. You should mind your own business. This is my business, Daniel said, because if no one speaks up, nothing changes. The men exchanged a glance. Something in Daniel's voice, not loud, not aggressive, but full of unwavering conviction, made them shift uncomfortably. After a moment, the taller one raised his hands in mock surrender. Whatever, man, she can deal with her own problems. He grabbed his coat, muttered something under his breath, and walked out. The second man followed. Silence hung for a beat longer. Then the diner slowly began to breathe again. Daniel turned to Emily. Her face was pale, her lips parted in shock. She didn't say a word, she just looked at him, with a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. He gave a quiet nod and stepped aside. Behind him, Lily stirred in the booth, rubbing her eyes. Daddy. Daniel walked back to her and helped her into her jacket. As they prepared to leave, Emily approached, still trembling. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. Yes, Daniel said gently, I did. The rain had slowed to a misty drizzle by the time Daniel stepped out into the cool night, Lily bundled in his arms, her head resting on his shoulder. The neon lights from the diner glowed dimly behind him, painting the sidewalk in soft shades of red and blue. He adjusted Lily's jacket and was just about to head for the truck when the door creaked open behind him. Emily stood there, arms crossed tight against the night chill. She hesitated, then stepped out, her shoes splashing quietly in the puddles. Wait, she called softly. Daniel turned, eyebrows raised gently. Lily stirred but didn't wake. Emily walked closer, her eyes full of something she'd held in too long. I just wanted to say, thank you. Her voice cracked on the last word. He gave a modest nod. You don't have to. No. She said quickly, I do, because no one else has. Not in weeks. Not once. She looked away, blinking fast. Those guys, they come in almost every other night. Always late, always loud, always acting like they own me. They don't take no for an answer. I told my manager once, he said, just be polite, get their tip, and move on. Daniel's face hardened. I stopped telling anyone after that, she continued. I thought maybe it was just something I had to deal with. I was scared to speak up, and tonight, I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't. Her words broke again, and she shook her head, eyes filling with tears. She turned away, embarrassed. Daniel shifted Lily slightly in his arms and took a step closer. I get it, he said quietly, more than you know. Emily glanced back. My daughter and I, we left a bad place 3 years ago. Home was dangerous, he said. Her mother wasn't the one hurting us, but she didn't stop it either. So one day, I packed a bag, carried Lily out the back door, and never looked back. We didn't even have a place to sleep that night. Emily stared at him, silent. I used to think it wasn't my place to interfere in other people's messes. Daniel continued, that maybe it was better to keep my head down. But the truth is, people like that, they count on our silence, they survive off it. He looked her in the eyes. Sometimes it takes just one person to say enough. One person to remind remind us that we're worth standing up for. Emily wiped a tear that had slipped down her cheek. For a moment, neither of them spoke. In that quiet, something shifted. It wasn't just about gratitude or fear anymore. It was to people strangers moments ago sharing pain, strength, and the simple need to be heard. Thank you for seeing me, she whispered, her voice raw but steady. Daniel gave a small, tired smile. We all need someone to see us once in a while. As he turned to carry Lily to the truck, Emily stood on the sidewalk, watching him disappear into the mist. And for the first time in a very long time, she didn't feel invisible. A week later. The diner looked the same on the outside, same flickering neon sign. Same hum of traffic rolling past in the night, but inside, something had shifted. Daniel stepped through the door holding Lily's hand. She wore her favorite yellow jacket and bounced excitedly beside him. He hadn't said much when she asked if they could come back here. She just smiled and said, I want to see Miss Emily again. Slid into their old booth. The warmth of the diner wrapped around them like a familiar blanket. The smell of pancakes and coffee still lingered, but the tension Daniel remembered was gone. It felt lighter now. From behind the counter, Emily spotted them, her face lit up, not with that tight, forced smile she used to wear, but something softer, more at ease. She tucked her pen behind her ear and came over, wiping her hands on her apron. Well, look who's back, she said with a grin. And just in time, my coffee's better this week. Daniel smiled, standing to shake her hand. Glad to hear it. Lily climbed up onto the seat, digging into her little backpack. Miss Emily, she called, her voice bright. I made you something. Emily crouched to meet her at eye level, as Lily pulled out a small folded card made of pink construction paper. Crayons colored the front with a big sun, a rainbow, and stick figures. Inside, in crooked letters, it read, to Miss Emily, you're brave, from Lily. Emily stared at the card, her hand trembling just slightly as she held it. Her throat tightened. This is the nicest thing anyone's ever given me. Lily beamed proudly. Daddy said brave people don't always wear capes. Emily laughed softly, wiping a tear from the corner of her eye. Daniel looked away, letting them have the moment. Over by the kitchen window, he spotted the manager watching with a nod of quiet approval. After Daniel had reported what happened, the man had taken it seriously. The harassers were banned. Staff now had the right to report harassment without fear. Subtle changes, but real ones. Emily stood tall now. She moved differently, no longer shrinking when a man entered, no longer constantly checking the door. She belonged here now, and she knew it. Daniel watched her thank Lily again. Watched how she hugged the card to her chest. And he felt something inside him settle. He hadn't changed the world. He hadn't fixed everything. But he'd done something. Something that mattered. One moment, one choice, one voice that refused to stay silent. And because of that, 2 lives, maybe more, had begun to heal. As Emily walked back to the counter, Daniel took a sip of his coffee, his daughter's laughter echoing softly beside him. For the first time in a long while, the world outside didn't seem quite so heavy.